welcome to Britwatch SportsSpeak. That's easy for me to say. You're listening, of course, to Ruiz Satar, and I'm joined by...
Hello, I'm Neil Leverett.
And we thought we'd start off with our inaugural SportsSpeak with a little bit of what's coming up in December, and there's nothing better to kick off with than boxing and
the big one,
the big match. Take it away.
Yeah, I still can't call this week. What do you think? Before we
delve in, I mean, obviously we're talking about Joshua versus Ruiz Jr. Two, part deux. So unless you've been hiding under a rock, you would have failed to miss the cataclysmic aftershock of Joshua being beaten by this tiny, chunky American Mexican. And now this is the rematch. It's in Saudi Arabia, which brings with it its own issues. Mm-hmm. But the real question is, has Joshua got what it takes to reclaim his belts?
There's absolutely no question that he has. He's got the arsenal. We've all seen what he can do. I like, as we've seen with the weigh-in a couple of hours ago, it's his lightest he's ever been for a title fight. He looks more Joshua, like as in New York, what was meant to be the start of this big American odyssey, American adventure. He looks more like the bodybuilder type, and now he's lost the weight around his stomach. I think, as you mentioned, he's around his shoulders, 17 stone. So he's giving away three stone to Andy Ruiz Jr., who's weighed in at over 20 stone. And which is weird because he does look lighter for some
Ruiz.
Yeah, it's strange.
I think it's hard to tell, but
but regardless, it's so 17 stone and a bit against 20 stone and a bit. And I don't know how that's going to affect things. I prefer Josh to be lighter though.
Okay, because I was going to say what are the advantages? Because I would imagine the advantages are if you're not carrying that additional 3 stone, you are going to be a little bit quicker because it is about the weight that you're carrying.
But it's heavyweight boxing at the end of the day.
Yeah,
the heavier you are, as Ruiz Jr. showed at Madison Square Garden, the more power that you have.
Let's look a little bit at the impact of this. They've obviously been there's several extremes. I think it's fair to say if you look on Twitter, there's people that are like kind of it's a match and Joshua has now tasted defeat and now knows what it feels like and maybe that resets his expectations. And on the other extreme, you've got people that are like kind of that's it, retire, go and sell cereal boxes or whatever it is that retired boxers do. So what is the impact for you if Joshua doesn't win tomorrow?
It's hard to say. I'm going to use a televisual metaphor here. If he lost again, I'm not sure. It's like let's talk. Okay, trying to compare him with Arsene Wenger. We're going off on a tangent here, probably.
Always the Arsenal boy. Always the Arsenal boy.
So the final few, final years, final few months, years, however you want to see it, however long you wanted him out of the club. It does feel like his legacy was slightly tarnished. I'm not going to say if he loses these 2 fights. If he loses 2 fights in a row, I mean, what does that say about him? Like, he's a champion. Like, he's a fantastic fighter. I mean, does that tarnish your legacy?
No.
But if you lose 2 fights in a row,
to the same
guy,
yeah,
that would be tough for him to come back from. And the thing with Ruiz, as he was the underdog now,
yeah.
But now he's the champion, so
Does that change things around?
I think it does. When he walks out into the arena in Riyadh tomorrow night, he's going to be. He must feel pressure. He must.
Well,
despite whatever he says.
Yeah, I mean, at least their weigh-in wasn't as pantomime-esque as some that we've seen, but we will see. It's not the only thing that's going on this weekend. There's a little bit of football going on.
Yeah.
The big match, of course, has to be United versus City.
Indeed. Yeah.
How do we? I mean. It's interesting. Like I got pulled up on radio last weekend because we were talking about Leicester. I was like, Leicester aren't going to win. Don't be silly. But also, I'm never convinced that Liverpool can keep hold of a lead. They might be the Christmas number 1, as we joked about this time last year, and then they wibbled and they wobbled like weebles, and then fell down at the end. What are we both in agreement that City are going to beat Man United?
No.
Therein lies the problem, I think. Hit me. How do you think this is going to go down?
Again, this is normally City at home, you'd think it's definitely, but City are really they're not the same. City is defensively they're extremely weak without Laporte. I mean, for Pep, the transfer window cannot come soon enough because they need to seriously reinforce in defence. And goodness knows how much money they're going to spend because Laporte is still, what they're saying, March at least, April, and when he comes back, he still won't be the same. So they do have to go and get a new centre back,
right?
Or at least United are fresh from beating Spurs. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, I suppose Spurs are in a bit of a transition period of their own, and Ollie seems to be either in or out, depending on whenever you glance at Twitter.
It's funny though, because I watching United. That was the first time I watched them. I think, yeah, they actually played pretty well against a team. You know, depends how you. I see Spurs as a mid-table side because I'm an Arsenal fan.
And I don't think that's unfair. Yeah, I don't think that's unfair because I don't think they're going to be able to get over the Poch effect straight away. You know, I think it's going to take them a while to settle themselves down.
Well, it depends how long this Mourinho honeymoon period's going to last. And is it over already? Having lost?
No, I don't think it is. But I think what we'll see is a repeat of this 3-year cycle that he goes for, where you got that a good couple of years, and then he'll suddenly revert to chucking people under the bus and bury them underneath the tarmac.
But the thing with this era of Mourinho, it seems like nothing's changed like since he's gone to Spurs, and it might take a little while.
Yeah.
But they've conceded 3 goals. So 2 3-2s and a 4-2, and they've conceded 2 goals.
Yeah.
So every game he's been in charge of Spurs, they've conceded at least 2 goals.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think you're right. I think for this season they may as well just sack it off and say, right, we're going to be a mid-table side.
It's difficult to do. As a side, you got to the Champions League final.
I know, and it's crazy. It's
and they're not going to be
crazy.
in the Champions League, hopefully again.
I know it's crazy. It's a crazy situation. But in terms of the run into the Christmas #1, as we said, like this time last year, I remember being on the radio and Liverpool had just edged ahead. We were joking about it.
So on the 29th of December last year, they had a 10-point lead and they lost. They've got an 11-point lead right now. However, they have a Club World Cup to negotiate. They could play 9 games in December. For me, their defence is still overrated.
Right.
It took 2 Virgil van Dijk goals to win last weekend.
Yeah.
Against a really plucky Brighton side, which, by the way, deservedly beat Arsenal last night. You know, I hate to say.
He really does. There's pain on his face.
Let's not talk about Arsenal right now. And I've been saying for a while, their away forms are really poor. Like, they were very lucky at Burnley.
But it isn't the thing that you need a little bit of luck. I mean, for me, I really hope I'm proved wrong because I think historically it will be nice. But they never strike me as a side that can hold on to a lead. It just gets eroded and eroded and eroded, and then it all comes down to some big pell-mell at the end.
See, the difference for me was with last year winning the Champions League at the 3rd time for Klopp.
Yeah.
And that was a big barrier for me. And he's actually won something. He can win big
now. And you think
now.
that maybe that just took
I do think that's just a massive psychological
barrier.
Maybe. So, you know, for no other reason, I want to see it more competitive.
Yeah.
Hopefully Liverpool do drop. They do come off the rails. I think when they come back from the Club World Cup, it does look like they're taking a pretty strong side out there.
Yeah.
I know they're playing. There's going to be the kids in the Carabao Cup next week when they play. I mean, not just real. Not even the exterior players. Just like, I think there might be some players we've never actually heard of in that team. So it's going to be interesting when they come back.
Yeah, we'll see. And did you ever, in a million years, think that who would be pushing them to the Christmas number one, for want of a better phrase, would be Leicester?
I didn't.
Be honest.
I thought they had a really good shout of very, very definitely top 6. And then I changed it to top 4. But they're looking like the biggest challengers to Liverpool right now.
Okay, well, we'll come back to this in January and see how it goes.
Could they maintain this? It's hard to see.
I mean, the other side of your writing, of course, is Formula One. That has come to an end. Lewis Hamilton has now won a 6th Drivers' Championship. There are murmurings of Ferrari in the background. You know, what else is there for Lewis to achieve?
Well, Ferrari, you've just said it.
That's the thing. I mean,
I think when.
But why would he want to leave Mercedes?
It's the ultimate for any driver to want to drive for Scuderia.
Really?
For Ferrari.
So you think he will go in 2021?
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's no smoke without fire. Let's put it that way.
I know. I mean, it was somewhat tenuous when it's like, oh yeah, you know, the boss met him in the pit. You know, it's like kind of, they probably just walked into each other in the pit. But I mean, do you think
it's extremely tenuous? But he's. I mean, so if he won next year, he'd equal Michael Schumacher for 7. Is that the time that you go to the place where Schumacher dominated after after starting his career strongly at Benetton?
Yeah.
But it seems like the perfect career arc for him. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it will be interesting because Toto Wolff is one of those sort of men that I can never really read him because he's so kind of laissez-faire about his drivers.
It's very very cool, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's like, if he wants to go, he can go. If he wants to stay, he can stay. And you just think, I just wonder. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to see Lewis beat that record and have it in his own right.
You do actually want to see him.
I do. I'm not one of these people I know he's a polarising character, but he's not, and we'll come on to that later when we talk about the Sports Personality of the Year. I know he's a polarising character, but I think that, you know, any sports person, I think maybe that comes from having done sport as well, any sports person you have to have that level of arrogance. I think because he has does all this stuff that people are like, kind of, well, it's all right for you. You've got like bling coming out of every orifice. But for me, it doesn't polarise me as much as he does other people. I don't understand why. And surely we should be celebrating a consistent British success.
Yeah, I think just to kind of touch, as I touched on the radio myself, like I think it's because he doesn't live in Britain. I think. I think that's a big problem.
I think so, and I don't know how you fix that, but we shall see. On my side of the beat, I got back from the Davis Cup finals in Madrid. I'll be honest, actually, I went out curious to see what it was like, because obviously the Davis Cup went through a massive overhaul, very unpopular with fans. I can see why, because effectively Spain had 5 home ties in the space of a week, and it made a massive difference. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've sat in that court, but because it's normally open in May, the sound dissipates, but in there it was like a cauldron for the GB Spanish semi-final, and for the finals it was just electric.
And that's what the British fans do the best when wherever they travel.
And it was interesting because the only country that went out there that really did not care was France. And when I arrived in Madrid, it was France versus Japan, and I had a little gallop into the thing, and it was as flat as a pancake. Like the Japanese fans, when it was time to make noise, made noise very enthusiastically and were very quiet. But
we saw that in the World Cup.
But the French fans were just like, we don't care. And there was no atmosphere at all in any of their matches, because a lot of the French fans and the French Federation themselves feel that this is not Davis Cup. Is it Davis Cup as we knew it? No, it most definitely isn't. Did it need to change? Yes, it most definitely did. To carry on attracting the top players, they had to drop it down to 3 sets. But these changes were just too overreaching. There's a lot that needs to be improved. If we have the same issues that we had, and it sounds like first world problems, but for example, if you're billeting journalists in the north of the city, that's fine. Either give us preloaded Metro cards or have buses that actually pick people up, and better still, take them back. Where you have to walk out to get the buses, some people got mugged.
Like
journalists got mugged and had their car tires slashed. It's on the last day, that was absolutely brassic. I was with an old Italian colleague, and the guy wouldn't let us on the bus. And this is like midnight now, and there's a lot that needs to be fixed.
So it's fair to say the preparation, the steps, the preparation wasn't made enough.
Yeah. What happened was they didn't. You got people from the ITF that are used to running slams. Quite honestly, you've got people from Madrid, and their only saving grace from a media perspective is the people that were manning the media centre also are responsible for running the Madrid tournament. So they know how to keep journalists happy.
Yeah.
And that was their saving grace, is you actually had some people that knew how a media centre needed to work. But what happened for a lot of it was Cosmos were like, it's all right, we know what we're doing. And I think they ran it as they think a football tournament would be run. And it just doesn't work like that with tennis. But yeah, it's...
Success.
Yeah. Well, do you know what really... I'll tell you what really surprised me was going into the Davis Cup, everybody was kind of, Davis Cup, can't wait for the new season. But during the course of the Davis Cup, the approval for the Davis Cup rose in terms of, okay, the atmosphere is good and, everybody's looked after well. And the forthcoming ATP Cup, which is almost exactly the same kind of format as the Davis Cup and with even more confusing rules, suddenly came right down.
Oh,
so,
wow.
for example, GB are in as under Andy Murray's protected ranking. However, that means it's Andy Murray and Dan Evans playing. So Kyle Edmund, who had a great upturn, has stabilised now that he's got a coach in Franco Davin for next year, can't play. So he will have to go and play in Doha because there's nowhere else for him to play.
Okay.
Not only that, they take the top two singles. So you've got Joe Salisbury, who is not partnered with Jamie Murray. He's partnered with Rajiv Ram, and he can't play with Rajiv Ram in the run-up to the Australian Open. Jamie Murray can't play with his partner, Neil Skupski, because he's got to play with Joe. They've never played before. So there's all of a sudden you saw this switch, and Davis Cup suddenly rose because people are like, well, they actually, this is elements of this are understandable. And ATP Cup counts for one extra week. So if you haven't been picked for Davis Cup for your country, as Riley Opelka hasn't been for the USA, that's 1 week he won't get of counting rankings for his year,
right.
Which makes a big difference when you're trying to get your rankings for slams and stuff. So all of a sudden there was a lot of kind of, actually, this is rubbish. And, we actually quite like the Davis Cup. So, and at the end of the day, these two tournaments and the Laver Cup, which I'm sorry, it's a glorified EXO, but it does the desired thing of getting a lot of access to players that people wouldn't normally get. However, it is an exhibition. The Laver Cup could have been played in that week of Madrid. It really could.
Yeah.
And it would have been perfect. In fact, Roger Federer and Alexander Zverev were off in South America and then toddling off to China playing exhibitions that were loved. But, I mean, you should have... There was one where they actually filled out a whole football stadium just to watch them play.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
So in an ideal world, I think, you will have the ATP Cup for as long as it lasts. Davis Cup has got to go after this Olympic cycle. They have got to try and move into that September slot that is occupied by Laver Cup, and Godsick and Federer have to give up that spot and put Laver Cup after the World Finals, because Laver Cup does go and reach areas and makes it so accessible for fans. The players love it, the fans love it. There is a place for it, but it's not in the tennis season.
Yeah.
And those matches should not count.
So just putting the question forward, because it's Olympic year next year, does that further kind of muddy the waters of the tennis calendar?
Well, it doesn't. From an ITF perspective, because really that's their only leverage they've got for players for Davis Cup, is that you have to make yourself available for your country in order to qualify for Olympic placement, and then it all comes down to your ranking. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next Olympic cycle, because obviously, it's anything that you've done in the past will count towards this cycle. So it'll be interesting to see how they get around that, because that's the only leverage that they've got.
Yeah. So kind of just to summarise, do you think so? Did you like the slimlined version of the Davis Cup?
I think
I quite like on paper. I don't know, because it's kind of old school, the 3 set thing? Like,
I think it takes a. I think it does lose that home and away. It's not so bad if it's neutral. If it's countries that aren't based in Spain.
Right.
It had great atmosphere. Kazakhstan GB had a fantastic atmosphere. Netherlands and GB had a fantastic atmosphere. But there were equalish numbers of. But against Spain, the GB fans had no chance.
And I mean, I'm saying that despite seeing some of the best games of tennis over 5 sets.
But yeah, I think if they wanted to keep the top players, they had to bring it down to 3 sets, and they had to change it. But I think you could achieve the same by having the number ones playing number ones, having the doubles in the middle, and having the number twos play to keep that kind of element. I think they just made too many changes too quickly. But the fundamental issue is you cannot have 2 team competitions within 6 weeks of each other. It's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever. But we'll revise this next year.
We'll see what happens, yeah.
But obviously the biggest thing that's going to happen in December is the Sports Personality of the Year. Spotty. So we've had a bit of a debate. So we've got Ben Stokes probably far and away out in front.
Strong favourite.
For his World Cup and that
innings.
Ashes.
Remarkable.
It was, and I could see him winning, but I could also see the most perfect girl next door, Dina Asher-Smith, winning as well.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is which is the most accessible sport, because everybody will know about football. The Sky was, with the exception of that final, was on. Sorry, the cricket. Sky had the cricket, with the exception of the World Cup final. Then they released it for terrestrial television for that one day.
In that sense, he's extremely accessible. Stokes, as a winner.
Let's just turn that off. I don't know how that started, but anyway, I don't know. It's for those people that watched the World Cup on that day, because that was the same day as the Grand Prix and as the men's final.
That was
a ridiculous day.
One of the most extraordinary kind of days of British sport.
We were in. I mean, let me explain what it was like at Wimbledon. Well, I sit in a little tiny writing room on the 3rd floor, and international writers were just wondering what on earth was happening to all their British colleagues, because we were all like squeaking at the televisions.
So I'm quite envious of you, because I was just partly I was in a pub, and then I was dashed onto our home.
But we were working. We were still working, so we couldn't get away. But then I've never seen so many people Google Super Over at the same time. Because and then people were running up and down the corridor in the 3rd floor of the Wimbledon Media Centre, and all of my international colleagues. I had to try and explain to an international colleague actually after we went up to the bar for a drink.
We've drawn, and it's
what, and she was just like, kind of, so what is cricket? And I was just like, I need way more Stella to explain that, but. Really, I think we're looking at a 2-horse race, in my opinion.
Realistically, yes. I can't see outside.
So who would be the third? Let's try and figure out the 3rd place.
Lewis.
Right. So Lewis is the 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I don't think people would necessarily know KJT other than the fact that she's a Brit. Not enough people would know her story, I think.
I think. I touched on the Olympics briefly a few minutes ago. I think that's a big factor here. Like, for me, if it was... If
it was an Olympic year, it would be different.
I don't want Dina Asher-Smith to win this year. I want her to win next year, when she's beaten Elaine Thompson and Shelley Ann Fraser-Price, etc. As she could do, and hopefully will do in Tokyo. I have no problem with... I love her. She's, she's a Bromley girl. So
for you, it's Stokes, Dina, KJT.
I didn't say that. I have a sneaky feeling Dina's going to win.
See, I think 1 or 2 is going to be Stokes or Dina.
It's definitely
without a shadow of a doubt.
We both agreed on the 1, 2. Yeah.
And then I think Lewis will beat out everybody else for the 3rd.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that it's Christmas is coming when Spotty's on. But we did a little bit of a dig back through the archives.
Yeah.
into, you know, and it surprised me when they were like drip feeding the names coming in, how many people of colour there actually were this year. I think Sterling's out of the running altogether after.
I'm just surprised.
Why is Sterling in the? I was really surprised.
He's done really well for England. Like he's.
But then hasn't he ruined it by having this like handbags at dawn?
I don't think so. Like, but I'm very surprised with his nomination. Like.
Yeah, I didn't get his nomination. But anyway, we will. We're hoping to bring this to you a lot more in the new year. Let us know what you think. If you like it, what would you like us to do? You know, what do you want us to talk about? But until then, you have of course been listening to Ross Satar
and Neil Leverett,
and we will hopefully see you next year. Thank you for listening.